everyone, welcome back. Brendan, aka Cliff Jumper, and today we're going to be doing a really novice kind of level thing on the Corrado. And well, for those of you who are professional mechanics and work on race cars and do this sort of stuff all the time, move along. There's nothing to see here. This is not for you. This is for folks that are just getting started and wondering how to deal with coilovers and adjusting them. So assuming you already have the coilover suspension on your car, you probably got a pair of tools that look like this and wonder what the heck do I do with these and how do I get the car to sit at the height that I want it to sit at. So that's what we are going to deal with today, and it shouldn't take very long. So as I mentioned, we're going to be adjusting coilovers on the Corrado, and this is pretty much the same procedure for any car that uses coilovers that have a standard double ring locking perch. I'll show you what that means here in just a few minutes, but these are the tools that you need. And for most cars, you're going to need to be able to remove the wheel to be able to adjust these. On some cars, you might be able to get up on inside and adjust these things without taking off the wheel, but having the wheel off is way easier. I'm going to talk you through a couple of things with coilovers that you need to know as you're adjusting them. And in our case today, the Corrado is actually too low. And I know people go, you put on coilovers so that you can make the car low. Yes, I did. And it looks fantastic. It's very show ready, I guess, with the height that it's at. But I'd like to get just a little bit more ride height, a little bit more, just a little bit higher than it's at so that I can manage driveways and speed bumps with a little bit more grace and poise than I currently do. So let's get out there and do some work on this thing. Now, if you hear shrieking kids in the background, don't worry about it. We've got a homeschool group meeting at our facility today, and so there's kids having fun. Anyway, here is what you're probably going to see when you look at your coilovers. Now, there are two different rings on the bottom of this, and you have one is a locking ring that holds the other in place. The other is actually the perch, and they will spin on the coilover threads to allow you to adjust it. That's how this works. The bottom one locks the top one in place. Now, you may notice that I've got this marked with some red paint. That is partially so that I can just count how many times I've spun the adjusting ring. And then the other one, I want to make sure that it's actually lined up with where it needs to lock. So I just put some paint marker on one section of these, and we will use these handy tools here to deal with them. There's two different sizes because there's two different lock rings. So the smaller one goes with the smaller ring. We're going to unlock it first, and then we'll use the top one to adjust. One thing that you want to know about coilovers is it's not really a one-to-one ratio with the height that you put on the coilover thread versus the height you get on the car itself. Springs do have either a progressive rate or a linear rate, so there's an exponential relationship. So you might do one complete spin with a thread, and it might only be a 3 or 4 millimeters here, but you might get half an inch of, like 10 or 15 millimeters of height difference out here. So we're gonna just make some small adjustments. And I'm gonna do just a couple of thread lengths and lift it. I'm gonna get a little bit more body height on the Corrado, just a couple of spins, and then we'll put it back down on the ground and see what it looks like. It is a little bit of trial and error because there's math involved, and I don't do math really that good, so I could probably work out the math and figure out exactly how many thread turns I need to do to get it to the height that I want, but we're just gonna adjust it a little bit. It's pretty close. Mine's already pretty close to where I want it. I just want some very small adjustment at this point. So let's dig in here. So these little notches on these spanners go into that, and you should be able to, let's see, put some pressure against it. You're going to do the opposite pressure on this side, and that will allow them to break loose, theoretically.
5 minutes later.
It's also worth noting there's a bunch of dirt in the threads here because this car's been driven. This has been on the road for a while. So we're gonna just use some brake cleaner to spray it out, get some of the dirt off of this. And after that dries, we are going to use some spray lubricant. There we go. See, the brake cleaner is drying off. Let that dry there for a second, and then I'm gonna spray on some PB Blaster, get that in the threads. Looks like I am towards the end of my PB Blaster in this can. There we go, get that going down. I'll let that soak into the threads a little bit. And just let that penetrate. And that will help us to be able to break these loose as well as move them without messing anything up.
20 minutes later.
Okay, so again, put this in here, put this one in the bottom, in one of these notches, and there we go. The bottom one is now loose. I don't need to move it a whole bunch because we're going to be moving the top one up. So keeping an eye on where the red mark is, we are now going to insert that into one of the notches. And we want it to spin. So let's see. Yeah, it's definitely got some dirt still in there, but not much to do about that now. There we go. Okay. There, I see the red mark again, so that's one full turn that we've got it. And I think we are going to go 3 full turns to see if we get that to the height that we were aiming for here. There we go. Center our mark and bring up the locking ring. And to lock the ring, it's the opposite. I'm going to stick this lock in that way and this one in this way. And you do not need Kung Fu Voodoo Monkey Death Grip. It will hold itself pretty well. You just need to get it fairly tight. So that's in there, and then just a little, there we go. All right, and those are pretty much lined up where they were before. It's not exactly, but there we go. There, now they're lined up. We've got our red marks. I'll go ahead and clean that off, put some fresh red paint on there just so that it's there for the next time, and we're good. Now we'll lower it down and see what it looks like on the ground with that, and hopefully now we're a little bit closer to the height that we want.
5 minutes later.
So believe it or not, that is actually lifted from where it was before. Now, after you adjust coilovers, you do need to take it for a drive because the springs are gonna settle to their new equilibrium point. So we're gonna go take it for a quick spin down the street, bring it back, see where it settles, but it's better than it was before, and that's kind of what we're aiming for, is just Yeah, it was super tucked in the front before and in the back. So even though it was a small adjustment, I can see that it's made a difference in the ride height up front, so that's good. One of the side effects of raising the suspension is you're preloading the springs. The springs have either a linear or a progressive rate on them. These coilovers have a linear rate. I don't remember what the spring rate is, but for every inch there's a certain amount of increase in force. So by lifting it just slightly, I've actually firmed up the ride just a little bit for your general cruising around, and it's noticeable at the freeway. It is feeling less soft, more firm. These coilovers that I'm using, they're H&R coilovers, so they're not the most aggressive ones out on the market. These were sold by Black Forest Industries a number of years ago under their own in-house brand. So they're decent coilovers. They're not the stiffest thing out there. They're really meant for street driving, and I appreciate that about them because they do not tattoo every little imperfection in the road into your spine. Some people are into that, and truthfully, I was into that at one point in time. I wanted the firmest setting, so I had my Coney coilovers that I kept it on the firmest setting all the time, and I felt like I was just driving around on the bump stops all the time. But this is nice, definitely livable, even on California roads. So we'll go back, check out the ride height where it has settled, and see if we want to make any more adjustments or if we're gonna just try this out for a little bit. With these sort of things, it is trial and error, so you might have to take your wheels off and on a few times to get it to the perfect ride height where you want it. And if they are brand new coilovers that you're dealing with, there is going to be some settling after 1,000 miles or so. You're going to find the equilibrium point where they settle a little bit. These have been on the car for about 10,000 miles, so they're pretty well settled. They're not going to settle anymore, except for after this initial adjustment. They'll find their equilibrium point, and then we should be good. So let's head back and see what the drop looks like, what the ride height looks like, and if we want to do anything else. All right, so we've driven it, it's settled. It is, let's take a peek up here close. It was really tucked before. Now we've got one finger gap, so that's perfect for right now. I'll drive around with that, see how I do. If I need to raise it a little bit more, I do like even wheel gap all the way around, just visually. But down here, the gap is 2 fingers, and that's kind of thick. So 1, that's good. Back here, I could actually probably raise it up just a little bit more. It looks like it's still just slightly tucked to angle my finger to get it in there. But from back here, yeah, it looks pretty good. We'll roll with that, and we'll come back and adjust it as needed. But anyway, that's how you do it. So hope that helped. And if you wouldn't mind considering subscribing, that'd help us out. Have a great day. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.